There is a moment, subtle, almost invisible, when the mind shifts from experiencing to evaluating. And the instant that happens, something essential is lost. Instead of being inside the moment, you step outside it, observing yourself from a distance. You begin to think about how you look, how you sound, what your partner might be perceiving, what you should be doing next. And this act of self-monitoring, which feels harmless at first, slowly drains the emotional electricity that intimacy depends on. When you overthink, you disconnect not only from your partner, but also from yourself. You move out of your body and into your head. The sensitivity that allows you to attune, the curiosity that makes you explore, the spontaneity that brings the moment to life, all of it becomes muted. Overthinking pulls you away from the rhythm of connection and replaces it with a performance. You are no longer engaging, you are auditioning. The irony is that most people overthink because they care. They want to get it right. They want to be enough. But this very effort is what interrupts the natural flow that makes connection feel effortless. When you're thinking, you're not sensing. When you're analyzing, you're not listening. When you're predicting, you're not discovering. And intimacy, in its truest form, is an act of discovery. What many people don't realize is that the body responds immediately to the mind's direction. The moment the mind steps into a place of doubt or judgment, the body mirrors that contraction. The breath shortens, movements become hesitant, touch becomes tentative, emotional presence becomes divided. Your partner may not know exactly what shifted, but they feel it, the slight withdrawal, the subtle hesitation, the loss of fluidity. Overthinking creates an internal distance, and intimacy cannot coexist with distance. Connection thrives on presence. It thrives on the willingness to be seen without curating the experience. It thrives on an openness that says, I am here not as an idealized version of myself, but as a felt, responsive, alive person. The moment you allow yourself to stop performing, something remarkable happens. Your breathing deepens. Your awareness returns to your senses. You begin to feel rather than think about feeling. And in that shift, your partner feels a new kind of availability, a warmth, a confidence, a groundedness. Not the confidence that comes from knowing exactly what to do, but the confidence of someone who is fully present, unhurried, unguarded. Being present does not require perfection. It requires permission, the permission to let go of the internal critic and return to the experience itself. When you stop thinking about how the moment should be, you create space for how the moment can be. And the truth is simple. The moment you stop analyzing yourself, you finally become available to the connection you've been trying so hard to create. There's a common misconception that intimacy is built on technique, that the right move, the right phrase, the right timing will magically create connection. People spend so much time searching for tricks and formulas, as if closeness were a skill to be mastered rather than an experience to be lived. But the deeper truth is this: presence is infinitely more powerful than technique. Presence communicates what no method ever can: attention, care, curiosity, emotional availability. When someone is present, you feel it immediately. There's a groundedness in their energy, a stillness in their attention. They're not trying to impress, they're trying to connect. They're not rehearsing what comes next, they're responding to what is here now. And in that space, intimacy becomes less of a performance and more of an encounter between two real, imperfect, alive people. Technique, on its invested in OR, is mechanical, created. Presence, on the other hand, creates a sense of safety and openness, that transforms even the simplest moment into something meaningful. It tells your partner, I'm with you. I'm not distracted. I'm not somewhere else in my mind. I'm here. When you are fully present, you notice things you would have otherwise ignored, the subtle cues, the shifts in tone, the quiet invitations, the unspoken needs. Presence sharpens intuition. It heightens empathy. It allows you to read the emotional landscape instead of relying on memorized steps. And this responsiveness is what makes connection feel alive, not scripted. The paradox is that many people use technique as a way to protect themselves from vulnerability. Technique is predictable, presence is not. Technique gives the illusion of control. Presence requires surrender. With technique, you can hide. With presence, you must show up. And showing up is what most people struggle with, not because they don't want to, but because being present means being seen. But when you let yourself be present, something shifts. Your partner feels a different quality of attention. They sense your sincerity. They feel your attunement. They trust your energy. And suddenly the moment becomes deeper, richer, more connected, not because you did something extraordinary, but because you brought your whole self into the experience. Presence is not about perfection. It's about participation. It's about allowing yourself to be moved, to be affected, to be touched emotionally. And the simple truth is this: no technique will ever matter as much as the feeling someone gets when they know you are fully there. There is a quiet force that enters intimate spaces long before words are spoken or actions unfold. It isn't loud and it doesn't announce itself, yet it shapes the entire atmosphere. That force is tension, the internal kind, the one you carry within your thoughts, your breath, your posture. And what makes it so powerful is that it doesn't stay contained inside you. It radiates outward. Your partner feels it instantly, even if neither of you can name what changed. Tension is one of the most overlooked disruptors of connection because it operates subtly. It shows up as holding your breath, as tightening your shoulders, as trying too hard, as worrying you're not doing enough, as rushing to meet imagined expectations. And the moment it enters the room, it alters the emotional environment. Everything becomes slightly compressed. The spontaneity dims. The natural rhythm between two people becomes strained, even if only by a few degrees. What tension really does is close the door to receptivity. When you are tense, you're bracing for judgment, for failure, for comparison to an ideal version of yourself you feel you're supposed to embody. And when you brace, you cannot open. You cannot respond fluidly. You cannot feel the moment as it is because your body is preparing for what you fear it might become. The body is honest. It cannot hide tension. Even when you're trying to appear confident or relaxed, the micro signals give you away: the stiffness in your expression, the rigidity in your movements, the inconsistency in your breathing. And your partner doesn't interpret this as a flaw. They simply feel distance. They sense a barrier, something unspoken but tangible. Something that tells them you're not fully here. The irony is that tension often comes from caring deeply. People tense up because they want to create something meaningful, something memorable. But connection doesn't grow from effort alone. It grows from ease. Not the ease of laziness, but the ease of trust. Trust in yourself, trust in the other person, trust in the moment to unfold without force. When tension softens, the emotional field expands. You breathe differently. You listen with more sensitivity. You move with more intention. You become attuned to your partner instead of trying to predict perfection. And that is when real intimacy begins, not with grand gestures, but with a relaxed, open presence. Because the truth is simple, the more you tense, the less you feel. The more you relax, the more you can truly connect. There's something profoundly misunderstood about desire. People assume it requires intensity, urgency, or some dramatic spark to ignite. But in reality, desire grows in the spaces where the mind is calm and the body feels safe. It's not intensity that sustains connection, it's spaciousness. And yet, many people unknowingly bring stress into the moments that require the most openness. They rush, they worry, they anticipate, they measure. They pressure themselves to create a certain outcome, and in doing so, they suffocate the very atmosphere desire needs to breathe. Stress narrows your awareness. It collapses your attention into the future, into what you think should happen, instead of grounding you in what is actually happening. It removes you from your body, placing you into a mental chase where you're trying to catch an ideal rather than experience the moment. And when your mind is racing, your body becomes guarded. It moves with hesitation rather than curiosity. Desire does not thrive in a mind that is hurried. It thrives in stillness, not the stillness of inactivity, but the stillness of presence. When you give yourself room to breathe, you give the moment permission to unfold naturally. You begin to sense rather than strategize, to feel rather than evaluate. This spaciousness allows desire to arise organically without being forced or manufactured. There is a psychological depth to this. Stress activates the part of you that scans for danger even when there is none. It shifts the body into subtle defensiveness. And defensiveness is incompatible with romance, connection, and emotional vulnerability. You cannot open when your nervous system thinks it needs to protect you. But relaxation does the opposite. It signals safety. It signals trust. It invites curiosity. When you relax, your partner relaxes. Your breathing sinks. Your presence expands. The moment becomes less about performing and more about engaging. Relaxation softens the walls that stress builds between two people. It creates room for playfulness, for exploration, for a kind of emotional improvisation that makes connection feel alive. This is why spaciousness is not optional, it's essential. It's the quiet container that holds everything meaningful. Without space, connection becomes mechanical. With space, it becomes art. And in the end, the lesson is clear. When you stop rushing the moment finally has room to meet you. There's an undeniable truth that often gets overlooked. Long before you touch someone, they feel you. Not physically, but emotionally, energetically, psychologically. Connection begins long before closeness happens. It begins in the subtle signals your presence sends. Your partner feels the tone of your attention, the quality of your curiosity, the calm or tension in your energy. They sense whether you're here with them or still tangled in the noise of your own mind. People often assume connection is built through action. But in reality, connection begins with the emotional atmosphere you bring into the room. You can say all the right words, you can do all the right things, but if your energy is distracted, anxious, or guarded, the moment will feel flat. Presence isn't something you perform, it's something you radiate. Your partner can feel when you are grounded. They can feel when you're listening beyond the surface, not just to what they say, but to the subtle shifts in their expression, the rhythm of their breathing, the emotional cues between the lines. This kind of attunement is what creates trust. It communicates that you're not just paying attention, you're available, responsive, attuned, engaged. And attunement is powerful because it makes the other person feel seen, not examined, not judged, but seen in the way humans long to be seen, through presence, through curiosity, through a quiet understanding that doesn't rush or demand. When you bring this level of awareness, your partner relaxes, their guard lowers, their trust deepens, because your energy tells them you don't have to perform here, you can simply be. This emotional sensitivity also changes you. When you tune into someone with openness rather than expectation, you become more intuitive. You begin to sense the moment with more clarity. You naturally slow down, become more thoughtful, more responsive. Connection becomes less about doing and more about synchronizing, like two people finding the same rhythm without needing to force it. The most meaningful intimate moments are not created by intensity, but by emotional intelligence. When your energy says, "I am here with you," everything becomes easier. Conversation flows, connection deepens, the entire experience shifts from something mechanical into something alive, warm, and reciprocal. Because, in the end, it isn't your touch that creates safety, it's your presence. It isn't your words that build trust, it's the energy behind them. And the truth is simple. When your presence feels safe, your connection becomes unforgettable. There is a subtle paradox at the heart of human connection. The more you try to control a moment, the more life drains out of it. Control is often mistaken for care, as if managing every detail, predicting every reaction, and directing every outcome will somehow guarantee closeness. But closeness doesn't respond to control, it responds to openness. It responds to fluidity, to reciprocity, to the dance that happens when two people allow the moment to shape itself instead of forcing it into a rigid script. When you try to control connection, what you're really doing is protecting yourself. You're guarding against uncertainty, against vulnerability, against the possibility of being misread or misunderstood. You're trying to create a perfect version of yourself rather than showing up as the present human version. And the moment you begin to manage yourself, you disconnect from the experience. You step into your head, evaluating instead of engaging, performing instead of participating. Connection grows when you allow things to unfold. Allowing is not passivity, it's not indifference. It's an act of trust, trust in yourself, trust in your partner, trust in the moment's natural intelligence. When you stop trying to orchestrate everything, space opens up. There's room for authenticity, for spontaneity, for emotional truth. You begin to hear more, sense more, feel more. You engage in a way that is responsive rather than rehearsed. Allowing also means letting go of the pressure to make every moment meaningful or dramatic. Not every part of connection needs to be intense. Some of the most intimate moments are quiet, unplanned, even imperfect. When you stop forcing the moment to be extraordinary, you start noticing the small things, the subtle signals, the softening of expression, the shift in tone, the natural rhythm that emerges when neither person is rushing or performing. And something else happens when you stop controlling. Your partner relaxes. They feel the difference immediately. They no longer sense that they're being evaluated or expected to meet some invisible standard. They feel invited rather than demanded. They feel included rather than inspected. Your openness becomes permission for them to open too. In the end, Connection is not a task to accomplish, but an experience to participate in. It deepens not through force, but through flow. Not through control, but through trust, and the truth is unmistakable. When you let go, you don't lose control. You make space for the moment to become real.